All right, class. So there's a quick tutorial here on getting how to started with assembly. Hopefully at this point in the mini golf project, you have a hole kind of resembling here. Again, notice it's in its own part studio. Couple of quick notes if you haven't done this already. You want to make sure you have things like parts that are going to move. So in my case here, I have Pac-Man and the ghosts that should be able to move. The other thing I might make note of, and adding color or whatever, if you haven't done that already, just a quick reminder, you can select a face, right click on it, edit face appearance, or in this case, it might be add appearance to a face, things like that. And that's where you can change the color, so on and so forth. Okay, the other thing you might need to do if you haven't done so already is make sure you have locations for where you want things to be. So, in particular, things like the whole cup, for example. If you remember, there's a whole cup here that has a diameter of, let me move this over here, 4.25 inches, and it has a overall length of, if you come click side to side, it is 6 inches, as shown there. So what I would typically do is if you have a hole, so I already set one up over here, for example, but you may want to make sure you know where the hole is going to be. You typically sketch on that face. I'll go normal to it. And I like to do it this way. Put a point generally where you want it to go. If you have a specific location for it, then you can dimension that point. Let's say from this wall to this wall. Oops, that's not what I want to do. I need the dimension tool, which is right here. So dimension from here to here, for example, if I wanted that to be an even 10 inches, and then from here to here, for example, that's also going to be 10, right? So on and so forth. Then you have a location, and I like to make this a circle, the size of the hole. The hole size is 4.25. Hit the check mark, and then I'm going to extrude that, remove it, and remember, it's 6 inches deep. So hit that check mark and then make sure you have a hole set up for where the cup's going to go. All right, at this point, I'm kind of set up for assembly. So what I'm going to do in the bottom left, insert new tab. If you don't have assembly started already, you'll create an assembly. Okay, so I've got assembly 2. It's got nothing in it. I'm going to come over here to insert. Okay, a few things to keep in mind. Let me see if I can move my face. Oh, not easily done. I guess I'll move this over. All right, I'm going to go grab the Pac-Man hole that I made. Okay, notice that everything's in here now. Hit check. And then while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and add the whole cup as one example. And I'm going to grab the podium while I'm here too. Okay, so these standard parts, there's a separate tutorial how to build those. Remember, we're going to use the same whole cup, podium, and tee-off pad in every one of your holes. So this is a good way to standardize that. Okay, first thing I'm going to do when I bring in things into assembly, I want to make sure that some things are grouped as well as fixed. So my first suggestion is everything I don't want to move. So I'm going to say part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are my ghosts. It's a good thing to actually name these. I probably would go back and do that. All right, but 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 are my little dots there. All those things I don't want to move. So after I highlighted them, coming over here to the group option, hit group. It should have grabbed everything that I selected. Hit check. Okay. Now what that does and make sure that these things are all grouped together, so meaning they're not going to move. And I also want to make sure that my floor doesn't move when I get other things moving. At this point, I'm going to select the base, for example, part 1 for me. Right click on it and hit this fix button. Okay, so what that does is allows me to make sure that only in this case, Pac-Man and the ghosts are going to move. All right, while I'm thinking about fixing things, let's go ahead and put the hole cup in its place. I'm going to use a fasten mate because I don't want that hole to move. I'm going to find that hole that I made earlier, the mate connector for it. Looks like that. Hit the edge and then rotate around to find the cup. Let me zoom in a bit here. Okay, this is the top, so I want that part to line up. And zoom back out, make sure it's in the right place before I checkbox it. That looks good. Hit the check. Okay, so that's in the right place now. Okay, if you don't have a hole, so for example, with this podium, right now this podium just like freely floating around. I want this to sit in a specific spot. what I like to use is creating a mate connector. Okay, so I'm going to go over to mate connector. Right now I'm going to use an existing one to work off from. So you see this one on the edge. I'm going to choose that one for example. I like to have the Z facing up just because it makes sense in my head. But I'm going to move it. So in this case, in the X direction is red. So I'm going to move that, let's say 2 feet. I can either type in 24 inches or you can always type in the actual units, so 2 feet. Hit enter. I notice it's going the wrong way. Then where I want it to go, put a negative in the front, hit enter again. Okay, so now this mate connector is going to represent where I want my podium to be. And what that allows me to do is when I go to fasten it, fasten mate, go to the bottom of my podium. I'm going to use the middle. I can link it to that one and it locks it in place, and I can do stuff like reorient, that rotates it, but I kind of like it facing that way. Hit the check. Okay, so now my podium's in place. I'll do the same thing with the tee-off pad, so if you had the tee-off pad in a certain spot, so on and so forth. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about animation or getting things to move. Hopefully this is quick. So we'll start off with the Pac-Man, for example. Okay, so the Pac-Man, let's say I want this guy. If I wanted to spin, I would do a Revolute mate. So easy way to do that is choose a mate that you wanted to spin around. So in this case, let's say, by the way, if there's one you want to get to, remember you can hold down Shift and then lock it in this way. Okay, so let's say I want this middle one. If I wanted that to move, to rotate, right now the Revolute mate will do that. If I animate this right now, theoretically, it should spin. I don't know why. Oh, rotate around. Why would that make it happier? No, still doesn't like it. So if I wanted to spin, maybe I can choose a different mate here. So Revolute, let's have it spin around. Oh, maybe have it spin around this edge. If I spin around the middle, actually the middle should work. Let me try one more time. Hold on, let me see what's going on here. Doesn't like it. Okay, well, if not, you can also should go around an edge. Let me try that one instead. Wow, okay, it is not happy with me here today. I'm not totally sure why. So Revolute should allow you to spin. Let me try it with one of the ghosts instead. Oh, I'm being dumb. Revolute needs 2 mates. Sorry. So it needs to spin in comparison to something else. So for example, with the Pac-Man, let's go back to it. Okay, so I've got, let's choose, sure, this middle one. And it needs to spin in comparison to, let's say, this face right here. Okay, so now if I set this up, okay, I noticed that it rotated it around that way, so I don't love that. I want it to sit upright. All right, we're gonna have to set up some offsets here. Okay, I'm gonna rotate it around the X by 90 degrees. Okay, that flips it upright. And then I also wanna lift it up in the Z a few inches. Let's see, oh, wrong direction. That means negative. All right, this is getting closer to what I want. Okay, so if I wanted to, maybe it's a little bit higher. Let's do 8 inches. All right, this is closer to where I want it to be. So now if I hit play, I see it spinning around that axis in comparison to where it was. So just as an example, that could be a Revolute or some way to get it to spin. Hit that check. I'm going to pause this. Okay, so the other one that you may want to use is called a slider mate. Hopefully this will go a little smoother. Sorry, my head has been all over the place today. So let's say if instead of Revolute, I wanted to get something to move side to side. Okay, I'm going to use this, the ghost as an example. Okay, so the way slider mate happens over here, slider mate, is it needs to move along the Z-axis. Okay, so I'm going to find the face where the Z, which is in blue, is going to move in comparison to something else. So I already have it kind of set up here pretty nicely. So I'm going to grab this edge. So notice again, the blue moving along that way. And I'm going to have it line up to, for example, this mate right here. Okay, so again, notice that the blue is pointing out towards where I want it to go. If I want to shift it over so it lines back up, that's where the offset comes in. So the X, whatever distance it just moved there. Let's just see what 6 inches looks like. Oop, wrong direction yet again. Let's go negative. Okay, that is too far. So it's really more of like maybe an inch or so, it looks like. All right, so that puts it generally where I want it to. You can see right there. And now if I want to set some limits, so it'd be kind of like 0, and then I want it to go, let's say, a maximum of 60 inches. Okay, and then what I'll do is animate it. All right, so now I can see how it kind of moves along that face. Okay, so now I've got the the slider for the ghost set up. And if I wanted to, I'd go animate it, right click, animate, 0, it's going to 0 to 60, that's where I'd set before, reciprocate. The steps just makes it go faster or slower, so if I want to go a little faster, I'll bring the steps down. Now if I hit play, I've got my little ghost guy sliding back and forth. That could be your moving part. Okay, the last thing I'll point out here, if you want to have multiple things moving, I set this up earlier, so I'm just going to kind of show it now. But if I want to have multiple things moving, then that's where the relations come in. If you remember in the train project, we did some of this. Gear relation means 2 things rotating, so that's usually 2 or multiple Revolute mates. You can have rack and pinion. That's what we did with the wheel with the track, so moving along somewhere. And then the other one I really like is this linear relation. So that's multiple slider mates. And that's what I used here. So as kind of an idea, when you set up a relation, so in this case, I have slider 1 and slider 2. The relation ratio means they're going to, 1 means 1-to-1 ratio. They'll move at the same rate. If I want them moving in opposite directions, I'll have that reverse direction. If I don't, I uncheck it. And what that'll do for you, I set up multiple. If you can see here, I've got multiple linear relations as well as multiple sliders. Then I come back here to my first slider. I come over to animate it. I hit play now. I can see I've got them all set up where my Pac-Man is moving with the ghosts. Some of them are opposite, just to kind of show what that looks like, while others are in the same direction. Okay, hopefully that gives you an idea of how to do your assembly. Just remember, make sure you talk with your teammates, how to get things connected so there's a nice flow to your golf course. And as always, if you need more help, let me know.